dangerous. The US is applauding Pakistan for countering terrorism, the same country that hosted Osama bin Laden. Yet another American president is going down the same road. But why is Trump doing it? As always, he's looking for a deal. This time, he's set his eyes on Pakistan's minerals. And another concession, he has designated the Baloch Liberation Army as a terror group. Meanwhile, the world is counting down to the Trump-Putin meeting. We'll tell you what Zelensky is doing in Berlin. Also, amid Trump's trade war, how India and China are rebuilding ties, why the feud between Musk and Altman is escalating, why China is rejecting NVIDIA chips, why Perplexity wants to buy Google Chrome. Will you get a toll refund for poor highways in India? We'll discuss the proposal. And the story of Kodak. After 133 years, it may have to shut shop. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. The Indian Army foils an infiltration bid along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir's Uri sector. A soldier was killed in the exchange of fire. Search operations are still underway. A few days ago, 2 terrorists were neutralized in the same area. The Israeli military approves the plan for a new offensive in Gaza just days after its security cabinet called for seizing Gaza's largest city. No announcement has been made as to when Israeli troops will enter Gaza City, where thousands have taken refuge. This comes as Egypt says it is working with Qatar and the US to broker a 60-day truce. Lebanon's president tells Iran's security chief that he rejects all interference, calls Tehran's statements on plans to disarm Hezbollah unconstructive. Iran, which backs Hezbollah, has expressed its opposition to the plan, but Tehran rejected the allegations of interference and accused the US of doing so. South Korean prosecutors raid the headquarters of Yoon Suk Yeol's former party as they look to gather evidence against the former president and his wife. The wife was arrested on Tuesday. Yoon Suk Yeol has been in jail since July. He faces charges of insurrection. And Australia and Vanuatu agree on a security and economic pact. The deal is worth more than $300 million and it could dilute China's influence in the Pacific island nation. Beijing is Vanuatu's largest external creditor. The final agreement is expected to be signed within weeks. You've heard of split personality, but have you heard of split foreign policy? It's what Donald Trump is doing. In his first term, he singled out Pakistan. He accused them of deceit and betrayal. But in his second term, he is applauding Pakistan for counter-terrorism. Let me repeat that for you. The US is praising Pakistan for fighting terrorism. It's the ultimate irony. US officials were in Islamabad yesterday. They held annual talks on countering terrorism. Afterwards, they issued a joint statement. Let me quote from what it says. The United States of America applauded Pakistan's continued successes in containing terrorist entities that pose a threat to the peace and security of the region and the world. This is the same Pakistan that hosted Osama bin Laden. The same Pakistan that supported terror in Afghanistan and that carried out this year's Pahalgam terror attack in Kashmir. Yet what does the US say? That Pakistan is doing a great job. That they're keeping the region safe. It's not just factually wrong, it's an insult to the victims of Pakistani terror. Beyond this praise, 2 things stand out in the joint statement. First, it mentions only 3 terror groups. The BLA or the Baloch Liberation Army, the ISIS-Khorasan, which is the Islamic State, Khorasan province, and the TTP or the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. These groups are against Islamabad, therefore they are mentioned in the statement. But other Pakistani terror groups have been omitted, like the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed, no mention of them. Because they're not anti-Pakistan, they're anti-India. Secondly, the statement talks about multilateral efforts. Again, let me quote. Both sides reaffirm their intention to work closely in multilateral fora, including the United Nations, to promote effective and enduring approaches to counter-terrorism. Now, to give you some context, Pakistan is on the UN Security Council right now. They also head some committees on terrorism. In this position, they are expected to push anti-India propaganda, and the US may not mind because they're promising cooperation at the United Nations. Now, this episode raises two questions. One, where does this leave India's ties with America? And two, will this embolden Pakistan? The first question was put to a US spokesperson on India-US ties. Listen to her response.
Do you think that this will lead to more U.S. assistance to Pakistan via an increase in arms sales? And is this being done at the expense of the president's relationship with Modi?
I would say that our relationship with both nations is as it has been, which is good. And that is the benefit of having a president who knows everyone, talks to everyone, and that is how we can bring differences together in this case. So it's clear that the diplomats here are committed to both nations.
I'm afraid that's not true. The India-US relationship has changed, and only one man is responsible for it, Donald Trump. India is still recovering from the shock of Pahalgam. We are still mourning our losses. Yet look at what America did. They praised the perpetrators of that attack. Also, look at the timing. Pakistan's army chief was in Florida over the weekend. While there, he issued a nuclear threat. He promised to take down half the world. Even that has not shaken the United States. They're doubling down on their ties with Pakistan, which brings us to the second question. Will this embolden Pakistan? Looks like it already has. We're hearing dangerous rhetoric from Islamabad. First, it was Asim Munir. Then, Bilawal Bhutto. And now Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, he too has threatened India over river water.
और मैं ये बताना चाहता हूँ आज दुश्मन को कि अगर तुम हमारा पानी बंद करने की धमकी देते हो तो ये बात ज़हन में रखना कि पाकिस्तान की एक बूंद भी तुम पाकिस्तान से छीन नहीं सकते। उस खुदाए बुजुर्गो बरतर की कसम है कि अगर तुमने ये हरकत की तो दोबारा तुम्हें वो सबक सिखाएंगे कि तुम कानों को हाथ लगाओगे।
The bravado is not homegrown. The Pakistanis are shooting off Trump's shoulder. But for how much longer? Well, that depends on the US president. He prefers transactional diplomacy, and so far Pakistan has indulged him. First, they signed a deal with Trump's crypto company. Then they nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. But what more can Pakistan give him? That's the key question. As for the security ties, they seem to be covered. American generals still trust Pakistan, and we saw evidence of that recently. The US Central Command head praised Pakistan as a phenomenal partner. Weeks later, Islamabad rewarded him. They presented the American general with a top civilian award, the Nishan-e-Imtiyaz. And when that general retired, Asim Munir flew to Washington. He personally attended the farewell event. It tells you what Pakistan's strategy is. They're betting on two tactics. First is to give Trump whatever he wants. The second is to cultivate the long-standing security ties. Of course, some irritants will emerge. Chief among them will be China. And that's our next story.
That's what's going to happen.
Trump has just given another concession to Pakistan. This time it's over Balochistan. The US has designated the BLA as a terrorist organization. The BLA is the Balochistan Liberation Army. It is also known as the Majid Brigade. The BLA is a separatist group. They want to break Balochistan away from Pakistan. They have been active since 2005, but in recent years, they have been gaining ground. The BLA has ramped up attacks against the Pakistani military. In March, they hijacked a train. It was traveling from Quetta to Peshawar. The standoff lasted 28 hours. Dozens of passengers and soldiers were killed. Pakistan calls them terrorists, and now Donald Trump seems to agree with them. But what does this designation really mean? Well, in the US, any support to the BLA is now a crime. That includes any kind of help, logistical, intelligence sharing, financial aid, any form of backing is now illegal. If a BLA member has American assets, they can be frozen. Travel restrictions can be imposed. The BLA can be shut out of the American financial system. All of this is limited to the US, though. The terror designation makes little difference outside the United States. Having said that, it does help Pakistan. It strengthens Pakistan's case against the BLA on international forums. But what's in it for Trump? Why is he suddenly interested in Balochistan? As always, he's angling for a deal. His target is the mineral wealth of Balochistan. It is the most resource-rich province of Pakistan. It has a wide variety of resources, from oil and gas to copper and gold. Most of these are untapped. Pakistan is looking for investors who can harness the full potential of Balochistan. First, they sold this dream to China, which is why Beijing is mired in the Gwadar port project. And now Pakistan is hoping to rope in the Americans. In April this year, Islamabad hosted a mineral summit. A senior US official attended the event. He said, and I'm quoting, "President Trump has made it clear that securing diverse and reliable sources of these materials is a strategic priority. Pakistan's vast mineral potential, if responsibly and transparently developed, can benefit both our countries." Guess who else attended this summit? Field Marshal Asim Munir. He took the stage and delivered an address. For Pakistan, that's not unusual. In most countries, generals stick to defense policy, but in Pakistan, General Munir calls the shots. And he also weighs in on minerals. And at this summit, Munir made his presence count. He said, and I quote, "You can count on Pakistan as a reliable partner." This happened in April. Recently, Balochistan was back in the spotlight because Donald Trump spoke about it. He spoke about developing what he called Pakistan's massive oil reserves. Those were his words, massive oil reserves. For the record, Pakistan ranks 52nd in the world in terms of oil reserves. Maybe in Trump's dictionary, massive means enough to deep fry a samosa. Either way, he's sold on the idea. Trump is interested in Pakistan's mineral wealth, which may be as exaggerated as his golf scores, because none of these reserves are proven. But Islamabad is still making a hard sell. And like I said, Trump is not the only taker. There's China too, plus Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom, Turkey, the UAE. Basically, Pakistan is peddling its unproven reserves to everyone. We do hope Trump knows about this double dealing. Though from the looks of it, he's making the same mistake as many of his predecessors, from Richard Nixon to George H.W. Bush to Bill Clinton. They all engaged, supported and armed Pakistan. They prioritized short-term transactional gains over long-term strategic relationships. It did not end well. Donald Trump seems determined to repeat that mistake.
There'll be some land swapping going on.
The countdown continues. We are 2 days away from the summit in Alaska, where Donald Trump will meet Vladimir Putin. It's shaping up to be an intense build-up. All the action is happening in two Western capitals, Berlin in Germany and Washington in the US. Ukraine's President Zelensky visited Berlin today. He joined a call with other European leaders, Keir Starmer of Britain, Chancellor Merz of Germany, Emmanuel Macron of France, Giorgia Meloni of Italy, and leaders of Poland and Finland. And finally, the heads of NATO and the European Union, all of them were there. These leaders held a call first. After that, they were joined by Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. It's basically a last-ditch effort. For what? To convince Donald Trump about their interests, to maybe advise some caution. And did it work? Well, the call ended around 1 hour ago. Most of the leaders sounded optimistic. Macron says Trump is hoping for a ceasefire in Alaska. Apparently, the US president also gave them an assurance that no territory deals will be made without Ukraine. The EU president sounded positive. She said the West had reached a common ground on Ukraine. Meanwhile, the NATO chief said the ball was in Putin's court. We also heard from Zelensky. He and the Chancellor held a press conference in Berlin.
I told the U.S. president and all our European colleagues that Putin is bluffing. He's trying to put pressure before the meeting in Alaska along all part of the Ukrainian front. Russia is trying to show that it can occupy all of Ukraine. I told the U.S. president and all our European colleagues that Putin is bluffing. He's trying to put pressure before the meeting in Alaska along all part of the Ukrainian front. Russia is trying to show that it can occupy all of Ukraine.
We have made it clear that Ukraine must be at the table when follow-up meetings take place. We want the negotiations to proceed in the right order. A ceasefire must come first.
The second element that was very clearly expressed by President Trump is that the territorial matters from Ukraine can and will only be negotiated by the Ukrainian president. This is the position that we support, and it has been very clearly expressed by President Trump.
But why this flurry of talks? Because none of these leaders will be in Alaska. It will just be Trump and Putin. In the past, this has worked in Putin's favor. He has managed to extract concessions from Trump. Many in the West fear a repeat. And Trump knows this. Ahead of the call, he lashed out on social media. Let me quote from his statement. "Very unfair media is at work on my meeting with Putin, constantly quoting fired losers and really dumb people. If I got Moscow and Leningrad free, as part of the deal with Russia, the fake news would say that I made a bad deal." For starters, Leningrad does not exist. The city is now St. Petersburg. Secondly, why blame the media? Trump has himself downplayed the summit. The White House called it a listening exercise.
This meeting came about because the president of Russia asked the president of the United States to meet through his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, who, as you all know, traveled to Russia to have a conversation with Putin at his request. And so the president is agreeing to this meeting at the request of President Putin. I think this is a listening exercise for the president. Look, only one party that's involved in this war is going to be present. And so this is for the president to go and to get, again, a more firm and better understanding of how we can hopefully bring this war to an end.
The White House has two goals. The first is to downplay expectations. They don't want to overpromise. The second is to portray this as a symbolic victory, to show that Putin is desperate to meet Donald Trump. You just heard his spokesperson. She says it was Putin who asked for this meeting, and Trump simply agreed to it. So clearly, this summit is not just about peace, it's about scoring political points. Nonetheless, Europe is worried. The EU nations released a joint statement earlier this week. 26 out of 27 members signed on. Only one, Hungary, stayed out. And listen to what it says. "A just and lasting peace that brings stability and security must respect international law. International borders must not be changed by force. The people of Ukraine must have the freedom to decide their future. The path to peace in Ukraine cannot be decided without Ukraine." So they have two main demands. A, Russia must not be given Ukrainian land, and B, Ukraine must be at the table. But Trump may have other plans. He has refused to invite Ukraine or Europe to these talks. He has also hinted at land swaps. Basically the opposite of what Europe said. Which brings us to today's call. Europe was hoping to prevail over Donald Trump. They wanted to make their red lines and concerns clear. And frankly, this is the big roadblock. Putin is open to talks. Trump is open to talks. Last week, Zelensky was also open to talks. But after Europe's statement, he has toughened up. He has ruled out any decisions without him.
As for the negotiations, in any case, they are important at the leadership level. But it is impossible to talk about Ukraine without Ukraine, and no one will accept that. So the conversation between Putin and Trump may be important for their bilateral track, but they cannot agree on anything about Ukraine without us.
It will all come down to Friday. Trump and Putin will be meeting at a military base in Anchorage. It's a location that Trump has visited before. The idea is to keep the trip short. Plus, the base offers added security. In the West, this summit is being viewed through a different lens. They're comparing it to the Yalta Conference. That's where the winners of the Second World War met. Together, they carved up Europe. And one can see the similarities. Still, it's a bit far-fetched. After 3 years of fighting, we certainly need diplomacy. We need to discuss all possible solutions. That's not a Cold War rerun. That's just practical. And it's time Europe accepts that. Their people are not dying on the front lines. Only Russians and Ukrainians are. We shouldn't forget all of that amid this flurry of diplomacy.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
However, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at Rahul Gandhi and the storm of charges that he has leveled after that press conference against the Election Commission, where he raised several questions. Now, the fact checks which are coming in from the Election Commission are not being considered by the opposition camp, which are blowing holes in Rahul Gandhi's entire argument. Now, remember, he said the 70-year-old Shakun Rani registered twice and she cast 2 votes. This is considering the Lok Sabha elections in the state of Karnataka. But the fact check which came in from the Election Commission after conducting that inquiry is that Shakun Rani dismissed the charges and even said that stop harassing me. She's become the centerpiece of this entire political fight between Rahul Gandhi and the Election Commission. But Rahul Gandhi's claim in this case has been proven wrong. And we just heard Aditya Thackeray also mention Shakun Rani's case. So the fact check that's coming in from the Election Commission is not being considered by top opposition leaders. Rahul Gandhi said that Aditya Srivastav and Vishal Singh are registered in many states. But the inquiry done by the Election Commission found that, and this is done by the Karnataka Chief Election Officer, that Aditya and Vishal Singh are registered only in Mahadevpura, not in any other state. So why isn't the opposition also taking this fact check into consideration, which is blowing holes in their entire argument? Number one, when it comes to another factor that's coming in, Rahul Gandhi claimed that a family of 3 was fake and said that they are fake because the photos can't be seen. That's why they were fake voters. This was the charge that's coming in from Rahul Gandhi. One of the various times he's made this case as a salient point that the photos can't be seen, so this ID has to be fake. But the fact check that was done by the Election Commission, EC verified the documents and confirmed the individuals are genuine voters. So Rahul Gandhi based his entire argument saying that because they couldn't see the photos, they were fake voters. That fact check being coming in from the election watchdog. Rahul Gandhi also said 80 people are registered as residents of a 120 square foot room, something other opposition leaders have brought up time and time again. But the fact check that has come in from the inquiry is that the owner of this particular 120 square foot room says that the tenants involved are migrant laborers. So people are coming in and out of this entire residence, and which is why it seems that several people are located and at one particular address. So that fact check also coming in from the Election Commission. Rahul Gandhi also said that losing the Bengaluru Central seat raises a lot of suspicion because the Congress party won all segments except Mahadevpura, and that's why they're putting the onus on the situation in Mahadevpura. But the fact check which is coming in, that this is not an aberration when it comes to the elections, the Lok Sabha elections in 2024, because the Election Commission as well as the BJP pointing to Dhule saying that the Congress party won in Maharashtra's Dhule after winning just one assembly segment. So it does happen when it comes to election results. So all these fact checks are not being considered by the opposition leaders when it comes to their case against the Election Commission, which is why, as you see, several opposition leaders are not even backing the pitch coming in from the Election Commission that these charges should be signed in a sworn affidavit and also be taken under oath. And at the same time, Rahul Gandhi also prompting the Election Commission to come to him, even though the Election Commission has said, give us the evidence so that we can verify it. So the storm of charges continues, but Rahul Gandhi being fact-checked at several turns. Let's listen into more reactions coming in.
हमने एक शानदार यात्रा रन कर दिया अगस्त 17 टू सितंबर 1 17 ससार हमसे शुरू के 1 सितंबर पटना में फाइनल प्रोग्राम राहुल जी तेजस्वी जी इन पूरा महागठबंधन लीडर्स के साथ शामिल है हमारे साथ पूरा प्रूफ है भैया पूरा प्रूफ दिखा दिया इलेक्शन कमीशन आज न्यूट्रल नहीं है हम दो चीज चाहते हैं इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वोटिंग लिस्ट चाहते हैं पार्टी क्यों नहीं दिया क्या प्रॉब्लम है इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वोटिंग लिस्ट देने के लिए देन दूसरा सीसीटीवी फुटेज क्यों डिस्ट्रॉय करने के लिए आदेश किया
अब गुजरात के लोग बिहार के वोटर बन रहे हैं जो भाजपा के प्रभारी हैं भीखू भाई वो पटना के वोटर बन गए हैं नाम उन्होंने कटवा लिया गुजरात में 5 साल हुआ नहीं कि आप जगह बदल के वोट दे रहे हैं अब पता नहीं पटना बिहार का चुनाव खत्म होगा तो फिर नाम कटवा करके कहाँ के बन जाएंगे ये तो वही बता पाएंगे लेकिन इन लोगों का षड्यंत्र जो है आप सब लोगों को समझना पड़ेगा कि किस हिसाब से भाजपा के लोग जो है बड़े पैमाने पे जो है बेईमानी इलेक्शन कमीशन के साथ मिलकर के ये लोग कर रहे हैं
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
However, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at Rahul Gandhi and the storm of charges that he has leveled after that press conference against the Election Commission, where he raised several questions. Now, the fact checks which are coming in from the Election Commission are not being considered by the opposition camp, which are blowing holes in Rahul Gandhi's entire argument. Now, remember, he said that 70-year-old Shakun Rani registered twice and she cast 2 votes. This is considering the Lok Sabha elections in the state of Karnataka. But the fact check which came in from the Election Commission after conducting that inquiry is that Shakun Rani dismissed the charges and even said that stop harassing me. She's become the centerpiece of this entire political fight between Rahul Gandhi and the Election Commission. But Rahul Gandhi's claim in this case has been proven wrong. And we just heard Aditya Thackeray also mention Shakun Rani's case. So the fact check that's coming in from the Election Commission is not being considered by
Six months ago, this was unthinkable, but today it's a headline. Donald Trump has unwittingly unlocked a Thor. More like forced it. He's brought 2 of his biggest rivals closer, India and China. It's not a full-scale reset yet, more of a tactical realignment, but it's very much in progress. In recent months, we have seen signs of normalization. Today, we got the biggest one yet. Reports say Wang Yi is set to visit India. Wang Yi is China's foreign minister. There is no official word from Beijing yet. His last visit to India was 3 years back. And on that visit, he met 2 key officials, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. If this visit goes ahead, expect Wang Yi to have a similar itinerary. And the timing is worth noting. 2 major developments are on the horizon. First, direct flights between India and China are set to resume. The announcement could be made this month. And second, Prime Minister Modi is set to travel to China. He's attending the SCO summit in Tianjin. The SCO is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It is a regional platform of Eurasian countries. This would be Prime Minister Modi's first visit to China in 7 years. He is expected to sit down with Xi Jinping. Direct flights are expected to resume right after that. Reports say the government has spoken to airlines. They have been asked to begin preparations. Carriers like Air India and Indigo might start direct flights soon. Remember, India has already resumed tourist visas to Chinese nationals.
We take note of this positive move. Easing cross-border travel is widely beneficial. China will maintain communication and consultation with India to further facilitate travel between the two countries.
During the pandemic, both visas and flights were suspended, and this has been Beijing's long-standing demand for India to start issuing visas and resume direct flights. Now New Delhi has finally agreed. At the same time, Beijing is reciprocating. It has eased restrictions on urea exports to India. Why is this significant? Because India consumes large quantities of urea. India's farm-driven economy depends on stable fertilizer supplies. Domestic production does not meet demand, so imports fill the gap. And urea is central to this system. It is heavily subsidized by the government. It is vital for raising yields of key crops. So China is now stepping up to help. And for the first time in 5 years, China has reopened 2 pilgrimage sites to Indians: Mount Kailash and Lake Mansarovar. The Kailash Mansarovar Yatra has been revived. More recently, the Chinese mission in New Delhi has gone into an overdrive. Ever since Donald Trump announced new tariffs on India, the Chinese embassy has issued multiple statements of support. Last week, China's ambassador to India criticized Trump's tariffs. He openly backed India's push for economic sovereignty. So what has changed between India and China? Why is all of this happening? Tensions still run high along the border. There's a deep trust deficit, especially after Operation Sindoor. Remember, China supplied weapons and intelligence to Pakistan. Both nations are still rivals in a broader struggle for influence across Asia. So why are they coming together? Because right now, India and China face a common challenge. They have to deal with an unpredictable Washington and a volatile Donald Trump. Both countries face steep US tariffs. Both face the risk of losing market access in America. So there is common ground. It's the economy. Both India and China want to avoid a slowdown. Both want to attract investment. Both want to boost FDI. Both want access to cheap crude. These are clear points of convergence. So expect more cooperation on these fronts. This is an outcome of Trump's trade war. With his tariffs, he wanted to isolate China and strong-arm India. Instead, he's drawn both sides closer. Don't be surprised if he starts claiming credit for this too. This only goes to show that in diplomacy, there are no permanent friends or enemies, only permanent interests. And right now, for India and China, these interests align.
Much more? Well, I mean, I think slowing down. Somebody says something that's false.
In tech, rivalries are par for the course. Some feel like slow, polite chess matches. Others are full-blown steel cage brawls. And then there's Elon Musk versus Sam Altman, a brawl with no referee and no bell to end the round. The CEOs of Tesla and OpenAI have been trading jabs for years. And we saw the latest round this week. This is over app rankings in Apple's App Store. Musk fired the first volley. He wrote, and I'm quoting, "Apple is behaving in a manner that makes it impossible for any AI company besides OpenAI to reach number one in the App Store, which is an unequivocal antitrust violation. XAI will take immediate legal action. Basically, Musk is accusing Apple of bias. He says OpenAI's ChatGPT is always number one, but his AI app, Musk's AI app, Grok, is nowhere near. And that's because Apple favors OpenAI. That's what Musk is saying. You see, Apple and OpenAI signed a deal in 2024. It integrates ChatGPT into Apple devices. So Musk says Apple's algorithm is pushing ChatGPT. And what does he plan to do about it? Well, he is threatening legal action. Of course, Apple has denied all of this. It says the App Store recommendations are organic. They are based on a number of factors. But Sam Altman was not having any of this. He fired back at Musk. I'll quote again. This is a remarkable claim given what I've heard alleged that Elon does to manipulate X to benefit himself and his own companies and harm his competitors and people he does not like. What Altman is saying is this: Elon Musk is already accused of rigging his platform. It apparently boosts his posts. So the Apple accusation is funny, especially coming from Musk. And from here, it went downhill. Musk called Sam Altman a liar. He said the OpenAI CEO got 3 million views on his post. And Altman hit back again. He called Musk's view count problem a skill issue or even bots. Now, this is both entertaining and absurd. These are grown-up men running billion-dollar companies and fighting on social media like kids in a schoolyard. I guess that's Silicon Valley for you, where tech CEOs fight like teenagers. And this was not even the worst part, because Musk and Altman soon decided that their egos were not enough. They dragged their apps into it. I'm talking about Grok and ChatGPT. First, Grok was asked who was right in this feud. And then came the twist in the story. Grok picked Sam Altman. Musk's own AI bot betrayed him. It's like every bad sci-fi movie ever. But Elon Musk was not willing to let this go, so he asked ChatGPT. And guess what? ChatGPT chose Elon Musk. So both of them got validation from each other's bots. Some of you may wonder, what's up with these two? Why do they hate each other? Like they say, it's a very long story, but I will give you the gist. Elon Musk and Sam Altman set up OpenAI together. It was supposed to be a non-profit mission. Then in 2018, Musk left. He was not happy about the company's direction. He was worried that OpenAI was abandoning its non-profit mission, that it was aiming to earn more money, so he wanted to sue the company. This did not sit well with Sam Altman, and since then, it's been an ongoing battle. Meanwhile, here's another twist. Musk and Trump are patching up. That's what reports say. Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Former BFFs turned bitter rivals. They fell out over Trump's fiscal policy and the Epstein files, but now it seems the bromance is rebooting. This week, Musk supported Trump's takeover of Washington, D.C. We told you about it. The president has deployed the National Guard in the U.S. Capitol. It's a controversial move, but Musk supports it. And on cue, J.D. Vance called for a reunion. That's the U.S. Vice President. He's asking Elon Musk to return to MAGA. We'll have to see where this goes. But here's what we know for sure. There will be more drama and more heated posts. Silicon Valley may like to think that it's building the future, but sometimes it's just a throwback to high school. Staying with tech wars, an old one is resuming after a short truce. I'm talking about the chip war, the semiconductor battle between the US and China. We saw a truce in the month of May. The US decided to lift its ban on NVIDIA chip exports, meaning China could now buy these chips. Just one problem though, China doesn't want to. Reports say Beijing has issued notices to local companies, to Chinese companies, asking them to avoid American chips, especially NVIDIA and AMD. Don't buy them. That's what China is telling its companies. The obvious question is why? China had earlier slammed such restrictions, so why don't they want the chips now? We'll start with some background. The Biden administration had banned sale of advanced chips to China, they feared national security implications. So NVIDIA crafted a workaround. They designed a less advanced chip, a chip called the H20. But Trump banned the sale of H20 as well. As a result, NVIDIA was losing out on billions of dollars, almost $10 billion a year. So in the month of May, both countries reached an agreement. The US would lift the H20 ban. In exchange, China would export rare earths to the US. These are minerals used to build electronics. China controls them. So Beijing and Washington had a deal. And the NVIDIA CEO was quite thrilled about it. He visited Beijing in July. He was all praise for China's tech scene. Then what went wrong? Why isn't China buying the H20? Reports hint at two reasons. Number one, security concerns. China fears the American chips can be hacked. Maybe they can be used to track locations, or maybe they have a kill switch. And in that case, they pose a threat, a risk, especially if you use the chips for government work. And we have seen such moves before. China had banned Teslas near government buildings. They also barred officials from using iPhones. Again, the concern was the same. American tracking and kill switches. That's what China is worried about. Secondly, Beijing wants to push its own semiconductors. It has invested a lot in this sector. Their chip mission is led by Huawei. Of course, they cannot compete with NVIDIA's top models yet, but they can compete with the H20. And President Trump confirmed that on Monday. He called the H20 obsolete.
This is an old chip that China already has. And I deal with Jensen, who's a great guy, and NVIDIA. The chip that we're talking about, the H20, it's an old chip. China already has it in a different form, different name, but they have it. Or they have a combination of two will make up for it, and even then some. But the H20 is obsolete. You know, it's one of those things, but it still has a market.
If you're China, this makes sense. A, you're not getting the top chips. And B, you have security worries. So why take the risk at all? Why not buy from local companies? But for American chip makers, this is a big setback. China has a huge market for them. They make up around 13% of NVIDIA's revenue and around 24% of AMD's. Both of these companies were betting on new sales in China, so much so that they agreed on an unprecedented deal. These companies agreed to share revenue with the US government, a 15% cut to the White House. Let's say NVIDIA made $10 billion in one quarter from China. This is revenue, not profits. Then the US government would have got a 15% cut. In this case, $1.5 billion. It's not clear if this arrangement is legally permitted, but if China does not buy, it may not even matter because no sales equals no revenue. Also, it raises questions about Trump's deal with China. He flaunted the mini agreement in May. His officials went to town with it, but looks like they made a concession that China did not even ask for. Naturally, NVIDIA is worried. They have issued a statement on China's curbs. They say the H20 is not a military product, nor is it intended for government infrastructure. But will it sway China? A lot depends on the domestic market situation. Huawei is doing a lot of heavy lifting. If they cannot meet China's demand, Beijing will have to ease up. They'll have to turn to NVIDIA or AMD. That's what the White House is also counting on. They say more revenue-sharing deals could be on the table.
Yesterday we talked about the NVIDIA chips deal the president has struck, as well as AMD, the 15% stake that will go to the government. You know, going forward, is this a model that wants to build on?
Well, look, right now it stands with these two companies. Perhaps it could expand in the future to other companies. I think it's a creative idea and solution. The legality of it, the mechanics of it is still being ironed out by the Department of Commerce.
I guess this was to be expected. Trump's so-called mini deal in May was vague. There was no written account, no official readout, and certainly no legal treaty. It was simply a handshake agreement. Both China and the US had their own takeaways, and months later, we are seeing the problem. And this will not be limited to China. Most of Trump's so-called deals are vague agreements. Expect more of them to unravel. Picture this. You're worth $18 billion. You have raised $1.5 billion from investors, and suddenly one day you have a grand plan. You want to spend $34.5 billion. On what? The world's most popular browser, that too owned by one of the richest tech companies in history. If it sounds unbelievable, that's because it is. Perplexity has just offered to buy Google Chrome. An unsolicited bid. Why did it do that? And is this the world's most elaborate PR stunt? That's what we'll discuss tonight. First, let's tell you what is Perplexity. It is an AI startup backed by Jeff Bezos and NVIDIA. Perplexity is run by Indian origin Arvind Srinivas, who's also a co-founder of the company. It has offered $34.5 billion in cash to buy Google Chrome. Yes, Google's browser, the one that has more than 3 billion users. Perplexity wants to buy it. But as they say, the math is not mathing here. Perplexity's current valuation is $18 billion. Chrome's estimated value is over $50 billion. But let's for a moment consider that Chrome is worth $34 billion. The price that Perplexity has offered, $34.5 billion. Even then, where is this money coming from? We don't know, and Perplexity has not bothered to clarify. Although this offer is not entirely out of the blue, the US Department of Justice has been trying to break up Google. The reason? Its alleged search monopoly. And one proposed remedy is this: force Google to sell Chrome. But it's just a proposal. It may or may not happen. Google calls the idea unprecedented. It says it would harm consumers. But if a judge orders a sale, every tech player could line up to bid. So maybe Perplexity is trying to cut the line. And here's something else that is odd. Perplexity says if it buys Chrome, it will keep Google. It will keep Google as a default search engine. That's weird, right? You are an AI search startup. Your entire pitch is that you're better than Google. So why would you let Google run the show? It's a question to think about. And this is also where the plot thickens. Just last month, Perplexity launched Comet, its AI native browser. Comet is built on Chromium, just like Chrome. Chromium is basically the open source web browser project. It powers Google Chrome and it powers many other browsers as well. Think of it as the engine to the train that is Google Chrome. Now, Comet is built on the same framework. But instead of normal search results, Comet has an AI answer engine. And here's what it can do. It can summarize entire pages. It can auto-suggest related articles, write emails, unsubscribe from scam, and even post on LinkedIn for you. For now, it is only available to subscribers. So what better way to draw attention to Comet than offering to buy Google Chrome? It's the perfect headline. Plus, it raises another question. Why are AI startups suddenly obsessed with browsers? The reason is actually quite simple. A browser is a front row seat to your digital life. It sees the articles you read, the products you shop for, the work you do, and the weird Wikipedia rabbit holes you fall into at 2 a.m. For AI companies, that is pure gold. That's the future they're all chasing. So Google is adding Gemini AI to Chrome. OpenAI is rumored to be building its own browser. And Perplexity, like I said, has Comet. So what do you make of this bid? Well, it depends on who you ask. Some investors call it a stunt. Others see it as a clever way to signal to regulators to tell them that you're willing to buy Google Chrome. It's also an opportunity. If Perplexity's offer works, it could buy instant dominance. It could control the browser market. If it doesn't, well, people are at least talking about Perplexity and Comet a lot more than they were last week. So either way, mission accomplished.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
However, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at Rahul Gandhi and the storm of charges that he has leveled after that press conference against the Election Commission, where he raised several questions. Now, the fact checks which are coming in from the Election Commission are not being considered by the opposition camp, which are blowing holes in Rahul Gandhi's entire argument. Now, remember, he said that 70-year-old Shakun Rani registered twice and she cast 2 votes. This is considering the Lok Sabha elections in the state of Karnataka. But the fact check which came in from the Election Commission after conducting that inquiry is that Shakun Rani dismissed the charges and even said that stop harassing me. She's become the centerpiece of this entire political fight between Rahul Gandhi and the Election Commission. But Rahul Gandhi's claim in this case has been proven wrong. And we just heard Aditya Thackeray also mention Shakun Rani's case. So the fact check that's coming in from the Election Commission is not being considered by top opposition leaders. Rahul Gandhi said that Aditya Srivastav and Vishal Singh are registered in many states. But the inquiry done by the Election Commission found that, and this is done by the Karnataka Chief Election Officer, that Aditya and Vishal Singh are registered only in Mahadevpura, not in any other state. So why isn't the opposition also taking this fact check into consideration, which is blowing holes in their entire argument? Number one, when it comes to another factor that's coming in, Rahul Gandhi claimed that a family of 3 was fake and said that they are fake because the photos can't be seen. That's why they were fake voters. This was the charge that's coming in from Rahul Gandhi. One of the various times he's made this case as a salient point that the photos can't be seen, so this ID has to be fake. But the fact check that was done by the Election Commission, EC verified the documents and confirmed the individuals are genuine voters. So Rahul Gandhi based his entire argument saying that because they couldn't see the photos, they were fake voters. That fact check coming in from the election watchdog. Rahul Gandhi also said 80 people are registered as residents of a 120 square foot room, something other opposition leaders have brought up time and time again. But the fact check that has come in from the inquiry is that the owner of this particular 120 square foot room says that the tenants involved are migrant laborers. So people are coming in and out of this entire residence, and which is why it seems that several people are located and at one particular address. So that fact check also coming in from the Election Commission. Rahul Gandhi also said that losing the Bengaluru Central seat raises a lot of suspicion because the Congress party won all segments except Mahadevpura. That's why they're putting the onus on the situation in Mahadevpura. But the fact check which is coming in, that this is not an aberration when it comes to the elections, the Lok Sabha elections in 2024, because the Election Commission as well as the BJP pointing to Dhule, saying that the Congress party won in Maharashtra's Dhule after winning just one assembly segment. So it does happen when it comes to election results. So all these fact checks are not being considered by the opposition leaders when it comes to their case against the Election Commission, which is why, as you see, several opposition leaders are not even backing the pitch coming in from the Election Commission that these charges should be signed in a sworn affidavit and also be taken under oath. And at the same time, Rahul Gandhi also prompting the Election Commission to come to him, even though the Election Commission has said, give us the evidence so that we can verify it. So the storm of charges continues, but Rahul Gandhi being fact-checked at several turns. Let's listen into more reactions coming in.
हमने एक शानदार यात्रा प्लान कर दिया अगस्त 17 टू सितंबर 1 17 ससार हमसे शुरू किए 1 सितंबर पटना में फाइनल प्रोग्राम राहुल जी तेजस्वी जी इन पूरा महागठबंधन लीडर्स के साथ शामिल है हमारे साथ पूरा प्रूफ है भैया पूरा प्रूफ दिखा दिया इलेक्शन कमीशन आज न्यूट्रल नहीं है हम 2 चीज चाहते हैं इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वोटिंग लिस्ट चाहते हैं पार्टी क्यों नहीं दिया क्या प्रॉब्लम है इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वोटिंग लिस्ट देने के लिए देन दूसरा सीसीटीवी फुटेज क्यों डिस्ट्रॉय करने के लिए आदेश किया
अब गुजरात के लोग बिहार के वोटर बन रहे हैं जो भाजपा के प्रभारी हैं भीखू भाई वो पटना के वोटर बन गए हैं नाम उन्होंने कटवा लिया गुजरात में 5 साल हुआ नहीं कि आप जगह बदल के वोट दे रहे हैं अब पता नहीं पटना बिहार का चुनाव खत्म होगा तो फिर नाम कटवा करके कहाँ के बन जाएंगे ये तो वही बता पाएंगे लेकिन इन लोगों का षड्यंत्र जो है आप सब लोगों को समझना पड़ेगा कि किस हिसाब से भाजपा के लोग जो है बड़े पैमाने पे जो है बेईमानी इलेक्शन कमीशन के साथ मिलकर के ये लोग कर रहे हैं।
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Being a Taylor Swift fan is almost like joining a cult. You're awake until midnight, decoding color schemes, trying to find hidden meanings, and somehow worrying about copper oxidation. The pop star has announced her new album. Taylor Swift has only revealed the name. Everything else is a secret, from the track list to the release date. And this has led to mass hysteria, so much so that Swifties are treating this like some murder investigation. Because they must have the answer, and they must have it now. Take a look.
Co-powered by LIC, हर पल आपके साथ. In association with Tata Capital. Count on us.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Big breaking news coming in at the top of the bulletin by Ukrainian President Zelensky has traveled to Berlin for virtual talks with US President Donald Trump and European leaders just days before the highly anticipated Trump-Putin summit in Alaska. Zelensky warned that Putin is bluffing, accusing him of escalating pressure on Ukraine and not seeking peace, but aiming to occupy more territory. He reaffirmed that Ukraine will not surrender the Donbas region or make territorial concessions without a ceasefire as well as security guarantees. Now, European leaders, led by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and President Emmanuel Macron of France, stressed that any peace deal must include Ukraine's participation and begin with a ceasefire. Meanwhile, Trump described the video call as, and I quote, very good, and said he plans to update European leaders and Zelensky after meeting Putin, and hinted at the possibility of a future three-way summit depending on Putin's responses. He even said that there may not be a second meeting if Putin doesn't agree to a ceasefire. First, listen into what Donald Trump had to say.
Mr. President, how were your calls this morning with European leaders, and was it your call not to invite President Zelensky to your meeting with Putin?
No, just the opposite. No. We had a very good call. He was on the call. President Zelensky was on the call. I would rate it a 10, very, very friendly. I know the leaders because I was at NATO, as you know. I took it from 2% to 5%, 2% that wasn't paid, 5% that is paid, which is trillions of dollars in defense capability. No, it was always going to be, I was going to meet with President Putin, and then after that I'm going to call the leaders and President Zelensky. I'm going to call President Zelensky, and then I'll call, probably in that order, the leaders. There's a very good chance that we're going to have a second meeting, which will be more productive than the first, because the first is I'm going to find out where we are and what we're doing. Again, this is Biden's war. This isn't my war. He got us into this thing. And it should have never happened. This war would have never happened if I were president. But it is what it is, and I'm here to fix it. And I'm here to stop 6,000, 7,000 people last week. 7,213 people last week were killed, mostly soldiers. But missiles being lobbed into towns don't exactly help either. But mostly soldiers, and Ukrainian and Russian. They're not American soldiers, but if we can save a lot of lives, it would be a great thing. I've stopped 5 wars in the last 6 months, and on top of that, we wiped out the nuclear capability of Iran, obliterated it. It's turned out to be a correct word, by the way, because some of the press said, well, maybe it wasn't obliteration. It was obliteration. And we're going to meet with, I would say, the second meeting. If the first one goes okay, we'll have a quick second one. I would like to do it almost immediately, and we'll have a quick second meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky and myself, if they'd like to have me there. And that would be a meeting where maybe it could be absolutely work. But the first meeting will not work that out. Certain great things can be gained in the first. It's going to be a very important meeting. But it's setting the table for the second meeting. I think the second meeting, if the second meeting takes place, now there may be no second meeting, because if I feel that it's not appropriate to have it because I didn't get the answers that we have to have, then we're not going to have a second meeting.
So as you can see, Trump rambling at his very